Welcome to the Crazy Alchemist podcast, where alchemy, occultism, and strange history come alive.
On the night of December the 5th, you hear the chains before you see him. They scrape over the stones in the Alpine towns, from Austria down into Bavaria and South Tyrol. Then the horns come up into the torchlight, goat horns, a devil's face, a long red tongue hanging between the fangs. Fur covers the body. One foot ends in a hoof. In one hand he carries a bundle of birch switches, the rutin for the children who have been bad. On his back he carries a tall wooden basket, the kraxen for the worst of them, the ones he means to carry off. His name is Krampus, and he walks the night before St. Nicholas Day. Online, he has become the season's favorite monster, the horned opposite of kindly Santa. And you have probably heard that he is ancient, a pagan god the church could never quite kill, a spirit of the old Alpine winter wearing a Christian mask. It is a wonderful story. The sources do not support it, and what the documents do show is stranger and a great deal more modern. The pagan claim is everywhere. Search for Krampus, and you will read that he descends from a pre-Christian god, often named as a son of Hel, the Norse ruler of the underworld, or as a leftover of Germanic nature worship that the saints' calendars swallowed whole. The trouble is that no one who repeats this has produced a source for it older than the 20th century. The version most people are passing along goes back to a single short article in the journal Folklore, published in 1958 by a writer named Maurice Bruce. Bruce declared that Krampus carried on an ancient pagan rite, and for support he leaned on Margaret Murray, who had argued that European witchcraft was the secret survival of a pre-Christian fertility religion. Murray's idea was hugely popular for a time. Historians have since taken it apart, and few accept it now. The ancient Krampus rests on a theory that has already fallen down. The real trail begins much later and much closer to the church. It starts in the late Middle Ages, inside the parish rather than out in some pagan forest. Alpine churches staged the Nikolausspiele, the St. Nicholas plays, in which the holy bishop arrived to reward the good children and was shadowed by a masked devil who threatened the wicked ones. The devil was the stick to Nicholas's carrot, a piece of moral theater running on a very old logic, the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. Krampus began as the church's own invention, the threat set beside the saint to give his mercy something to weigh against. The pagan god came afterward and only in the retelling.
The Krampus you actually picture, the postcard devil, is younger still. Between about 1885 and the First World War, Vienna poured out greeting cards called Krampuskarten, printed in color and mailed by the thousand each December, stamped with the line Gruß vom Krampus, greetings from Krampus. Those cards fixed his look for good, the horns and the tongue, the chains, the basket of weeping children. Many were never really meant for children at all. They are satirical, often political, and a fair number are openly, knowingly erotic. The monster we treat as timeless owes a real debt to the Victorian printing press and the Imperial Austrian Post. Then, a government set out to be rid of him. In the 1930s, Austria fell under the Austrofascist regime of Engelbert Dollfuss, a Catholic authoritarian state that distrusted the rowdy masked street tradition. The campaign was real enough that in December 1934, the New York Times carried a headline reading, "Krampus disliked in fascist Austria." The unease outlived the regime. As late as the 1950s, the Austrian authorities were still handing out a pamphlet under the flat little title that Krampus ist ein böser Mann. Krampus is a bad man. A figure supposedly older than the church turned out to sit well within the reach of a modern state. He did not disappear, though, and in the end he came roaring back. The Krampuslauf you can see today, the Krampus Run, with hundreds of costumed performers thundering through Salzburg and Schladming and Lienz in hand-carved wooden masks under torches and bells in the real weight of fur, is largely a revival that took off in the 1990s. It has since crossed the ocean, and there are now Krampus parades in American cities that had never heard the name a generation ago. He keeps company, too. The Alps are crowded with midwinter figures who are easy to confuse with him or to fold into him, though each has its own separate history. There is Perta, the old woman of the deep winter, who is said to slit the bellies of the lazy, and the Perten, who run in her name. Knecht Ruprecht walks as St. Nicholas's other dark servant. The Wild Hunt, the host of the restless dead, rides overhead in the winter storms. Some of these may well be older. With Krampus himself, the honest answer is that the trail goes cold at the church plays, and everything before that is a guess wearing the costume of a memory. The age of the evidence is one thing, the feeling is another. Krampus feels old because he does old work. A midwinter made only of presents and a kindly saint leaves something out, because winter is also the dark and the long wait to see whether the year will turn. Krampus gives that fear a body. He never needed to be a surviving god to do it. He only needed to be useful. And besides St. Nicholas, he has been useful for a very long time. If you enjoyed this, the full entry on Krampus is on the site at crazyalchemist.com, with the sources and the further reading listed for anyone who wants to follow the trail themselves. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for more on the history of esotericism and the dark corners of belief. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to visit crazyalchemist.com for more intriguing content and follow Crazy Alchemist on Instagram and Facebook to stay connected.